Welcome to Sleepy Science. Tonight, you'll hear the most calming facts about life on Earth. Facts that show how this planet built life from almost nothing, how simple cells shaped oceans, how quiet events changed the entire world, and how every living thing is connected in ways we rarely notice. The story is peaceful, but the details are surprising. Stay close and subscribe before we begin. The story of life on Earth begins in silence, not the kind of silence you hear at night, a deeper one, a silence where nothing moves, nothing breathes, nothing grows, only a young planet floating in dark space, still hot from its birth, still forming its shape after storms of fire and rock. If you could see Earth back then, you would not see blue oceans or green forests. You would see a world covered in glowing lava, rivers of melted rock, thick air filled with smoke, the sky almost black, no clouds, no rain, no life, only heat, only darkness, only a surface too wild for anything to survive. But even in this harsh world, change was slowly beginning. The ground started to cool, the lava hardened into rock, the heavy air settled, storms calmed, the heat faded little by little. With every small change, the planet moved toward something new, something tiny, something that would one day shape everything. As the surface cooled more, cracks spread across the land. Steam rose from deep inside Earth. Minerals mixed with the air. Water began to gather in low places. At first, only small pools, then deeper valleys filled. Then huge basins formed. These early oceans were not blue. They were dark, thick, heavy with chemicals, but they were exactly what life needed. Inside those waters, hidden from the empty world above, simple chemicals were quietly reacting. They met, they joined, they broke apart, then joined again in new ways. It happened everywhere. No plan, no purpose, just natural reactions happening again and again. Time helped. And Earth had a lot of time, millions of years where nothing rushed. Millions of years where the ocean stayed warm enough for these reactions to continue. Slowly, simple molecules became more complex. Some held together longer. Some formed tiny chains. Some could copy parts of themselves. These were small steps, but they were steps toward life. Think about that. Every living thing you know, trees, cats, birds, humans, began from tiny reactions in dark water. No sound, no color, nothing to see. Just calm chemistry building the first pieces of life. Walls began forming around these simple molecules, shapes that could protect themselves, places where reactions could happen safely. Some shapes divided naturally. Some held their structure better than others. These tiny differences mattered. The ones that stayed together had a chance to continue, a chance to become the first living forms. Meanwhile, the world above was changing too. Rain fell for thousands of years. Lightning hit the ground. Volcanoes sent gas into the air. The sky thickened. Clouds formed. The planet cooled more. Every change made the world a little more ready for life. Earth looked calm from far away, but it was full of motion inside. Continents shifted. Mountains rose and fell. Oceans boiled, cooled, then boiled again. Each change shaped the places where early life would one day grow. This quiet beginning was not empty. It was preparation. It was Earth creating a soft cradle for something delicate, something that would one day breathe, grow, and spread across the planet. This slow setup mattered more than anything that came after. Deep in the oceans, warm pockets formed near cracks in the sea floor. Heated water rose from below. Minerals filled the water. These warm places became perfect for more reactions. Molecules had the right heat, the right minerals, the right environment, and they kept forming new shapes. These shapes were not alive yet, but they were close. They held information. They kept their structure. They reacted in useful ways. They were the building blocks of life, and they appeared long before the first living cell. This part of Earth's story is quiet, but it carries the biggest weight. Because the rules of life, how it copies, how it survives, how it grows, were written here. In still oceans, in warm water, in tiny reactions no one could see, most reactions failed. Most shapes broke apart, but a few rare ones stayed together. A few survived long enough to join with other pieces. These rare survivors became meaningful. They became the early steps of something new. Earth did not push them. Earth did not rush. It simply gave them time, millions of years of time, until one special structure appeared. One that could copy itself without falling apart. One that could keep a pattern. One that could last long enough to matter. That was the first quiet spark of life. It did not glow. It did not move. It did not leave a mark on the surface of the world. But it was alive, small, soft, simple. From that tiny moment everything else began: plants, animals, oceans full of life, forests, insects, people. All of it can be traced back to this silent beginning. A young earth, a dark ocean, a slow breath forming in warm water. This is how life prepared for its first step. Life on Earth began in the water, quiet, soft, almost invisible. After millions of years of simple reactions in the oceans, something new appeared. Something that could stay together, something that could copy itself, something that could protect its own tiny shape. The first living cell. It was simple, so simple that you might not even call it a creature. No bones, no organs, no eyes, no brain. Just a tiny bubble made of soft material, floating in warm water. But inside that bubble was a structure that could copy itself again and again. That single ability separated it from everything else around it. This tiny cell was fragile. A small change in heat could break it. A strong wave could tear it apart. A little bit of bad chemistry could destroy it. But still, it stayed alive. And that alone made it special. Inside these early cells, reactions kept happening. They broke down simple chemicals. They used energy from their environment. They made copies of their inside parts. They repaired themselves when they were damaged. All of this happened without thinking, without planning, just natural rules playing out inside a tiny bubble. Imagine that. The first living thing on Earth was nothing more than a soft shape in dark water, but it carried the beginning of every life that would come later. These cells held the first spark of growth, the first real step in the long story of living things. The oceans back then were warm and full of minerals. Sunlight reached the surface. Heat came from deep cracks in the sea floor. These early cells floated, moved, and spread to different parts of the ocean. Some stayed near the surface where light was strong. Some stayed near the bottom where warm currents rose. Each place offered something new, and the cells changed. Some became better at using sunlight. They built simple tools inside themselves to catch light and turn it into energy. These tools were tiny, but they were powerful. They let the cells grow faster and live longer. Some learned to use chemicals in the water. They took in tiny particles, broke them apart, used the energy for themselves. This helped them survive in darker places where sunlight could not reach. Little by little, the cells became better at staying alive, better at feeding, better at copying themselves. Their shapes changed. Their walls became stronger. Their inside parts became more organized. Every small improvement helped them last longer in the busy ocean. Even though these changes were tiny, they added up. Over thousands of years, then millions of years, the cells became more stable. They divided into two. Each half carried the same instructions. Then those halves divided again and again. Soon the oceans were full of these tiny living bubbles. If you looked into the water at that time, you would not see animals or plants. You would not see anything big, but you would see motion, gentle motion, millions of tiny dots swimming through the water, each dot simple, each dot quiet, but each one alive. These early cells did not have complex parts like modern cells do. They were plain, but they were learning, not through thought but through natural change. The cells that made mistakes died. The cells that built stronger walls survived. The cells that copied themselves faster spread in greater numbers. Nature was choosing the shapes that worked best. This slow rise from simple chemistry to living cells is one of the most important moments in Earth's story. It is the moment when non-living turned into living. And it did not happen with noise or drama. It happened quietly in warm water, far from any eyes that could see it. Some early cells began to work together in small groups. They did not form bodies yet. They simply stayed close. When one cell produced something useful, the cells around it could use it too. This helped the group last longer in changing conditions. It was the first soft hint of teamwork in nature. Over time, new kinds of cells appeared, some with more complex inside parts, some with stronger walls. These new cells were more powerful than the simple ones. They could do more. They could handle more. They survived when others did not. One of the biggest steps happened when a simple cell entered a larger cell and stayed there. Instead of being eaten or destroyed, the smaller cell helped the bigger one. It produced energy. It shared resources. In return, the bigger cell protected it. This partnership was the beginning of what we now call mitochondria, the energy centers inside your own cells today. This moment changed everything. It gave cells a huge boost of power. More power meant more growth. More growth meant more change. And more change meant new forms of life. Imagine billions of tiny cells floating through the water. Different types, different strengths. Some using sunlight, some using chemicals, some working together, all trying to survive in a world that was always shifting. The oceans were filled with quiet motion, a soft dance of tiny shapes rising and sinking in warm currents. They copied themselves. They spread across the planet. They filled every space where life could grow. This spread of tiny life also changed Earth itself. When some cells used sunlight, they released oxygen as a byproduct. At first, this oxygen had no place to go. It reacted with rocks and minerals. But after millions of years, it began to collect in the air. Slowly, quietly, the air changed. It gained oxygen. And oxygen would one day allow complex life to breathe. That simple change, cells using sunlight, helped shape the entire future of Earth. Think about how big that is. A tiny cell, barely visible, changed the whole atmosphere. Without these small creatures, there would be no blue sky, no animals, no humans, no life that breathes air. The early cells continued to change. Some became long and thin to swim faster. Some became rounder to resist strong currents. Some grew tiny hair-like structures to help them move. Others stayed still and relied on water flowing around them. Each shape helped them survive in their own way. The ocean was now a living world. Small, simple, but full of energy. Every cell was part of a growing web. A web that would one day grow into plants, animals, and everything you see around you. The first living breath on Earth did not come from lungs. It came from cells using energy for the first time. It came from bubbles that could stay alive. It came from tiny shapes that learned, through nature alone, how to grow and copy themselves. From this simple beginning, the entire story of life continued. After the first living cells appeared, Earth entered a long age ruled by tiny creatures. They were too small to see, but they filled the oceans. They shaped the water. They changed the air. They started to control the planet in ways no one could ever have imagined. These early creatures were microbes, simple, soft, microscopic, but powerful. They did not look like much, just small dots floating in warm water. But they worked nonstop. They fed, they grew, they copied themselves, and slowly they began to change the world. At this time, Earth's oceans were dark and thick. The air had almost no oxygen. Most creatures today would not survive there. But microbes could. They were made for these early conditions. They used minerals from the water. They used heat from deep cracks in the ocean floor. They used sunlight near the surface. Every place on Earth became a home for them. And the number of microbes grew. Millions became billions. Billions became trillions. Soon, the oceans were crowded with life. Not big life, but life that worked without rest. Life that slowly pushed the planet toward something new. One group of microbes took a step that would change everything. They learned how to use sunlight in a special way. They trapped light and used its energy to make food. This was the start of photosynthesis. A simple trick, a natural trick, but it was one of the most powerful inventions in Earth's history. Here is the surprising part. When these microbes made food from sunlight, they released something into the water: oxygen. At first, the oxygen did not matter. It reacted with rocks and minerals. It disappeared fast, but the microbes kept producing more. Day after day, year after year, for a very long time. Slowly, the rocks could not absorb any more oxygen. Slowly, the ocean could not hold any more either. Then oxygen began to rise into the air. This was one of the biggest changes the planet had ever seen. A change caused by creatures smaller than dust. The air thickened with oxygen. Not in one moment, not in one year, but over millions of years. The sky began to change color. A thin layer formed around Earth that could block dangerous sunlight. The world became safer for life, all because of tiny microbes. These microbes also changed the oceans. Before them, the water was rich in iron. When oxygen mixed with the iron, it formed rust. Rust sank to the bottom. It built huge layers of reddish rock. Today, those rocks are some of the oldest and biggest iron deposits on the planet. So the air changed, the oceans changed, and the land changed too. Earth was slowly being rebuilt by creatures too small to see. This time is often called the Great Oxidation Event. But to the microbes living through it, it was simply life. Grow, feed, multiply. They were not trying to change the world. They just did. As oxygen spread, not all microbes survived. Many of them were made for a world with no oxygen. For them, the rise of oxygen felt like poison. Their world was shrinking. Their safe places were disappearing. Some escaped deep into oceans where oxygen could not reach. Some lived in mud, trapped away from air. Some died out, but other microbes adjusted. Some learned to use oxygen in their reactions. This gave them more energy, much more. They could grow faster. They could handle new environments. They became stronger compared to the older forms of life. This shift in power changed the story again. The creatures that used oxygen began to spread. They filled the oceans. They lived near the surface. They lived in deeper waters. They moved into spaces the older microbes could not enter. Earth became a patchwork of tiny worlds. Different kinds of microbes living in different places. Each group doing something important. Each group shaping the future. Some microbes formed communities. They stuck together in layers, slimy sheets, floating mats, hard lumps. These structures caught minerals. They trapped sunlight. They released chemicals. In some ways, they were the first ecosystems. Simple but active. Every part of them helped the others. Some of these ancient microbial mats still exist today. They are called stromatolites. They look like round, layered rocks. But inside them, tiny living creatures are still doing the same work their ancestors did billions of years ago. They are like windows into Earth's distant past. The calm work of microbes also changed the temperature of the planet. Some released gases that trapped heat. Some absorbed gases that cooled the planet. They helped control the balance without knowing it. Their slow, steady actions kept Earth from freezing or boiling. They were tiny guardians of the planet's climate. For millions of years, microbes were the only life on Earth. No plants, no animals, no fish, no insects, just tiny creatures living in water shaping the world in silence. It is strange to think about. We look at life today and see big animals, huge forests, wide oceans full of movement, but all of that came from a world run by microbes. They built the oxygen we breathe. They cleaned the oceans. They prepared the planet for everything that would come later. Their quiet work made Earth a place where complex life could one day survive. Another major change happened when some microbes learned how to breathe oxygen directly. This gave them a huge amount of energy, more than any creature before them. With this extra energy, they could grow larger parts inside themselves. They could store food. They could move in new ways. This step led to the rise of more complex cells. Cells with inner compartments. Cells with organized structures. Cells that could handle bigger tasks. These new cells were the bridge between tiny microbes and more advanced life forms. The oceans now had many layers of activity. Simple microbes living in deep, dark water. Photosynthetic microbes near the surface. New complex cells forming in between. Every part of the ocean was alive. But the biggest hook in this whole story is simple. The entire world you know today, every plant, every animal, every human exists because tiny creatures changed the planet first. Earth did not start as a place for large life. It became a place for large life because microbes rebuilt it. They built the air. They changed the water. They shaped the land. They opened the door for everything that would follow. And they did it quietly, gently, without ever seeing the world they were creating. Life did not stay small forever. In time, something new began to happen in the quiet oceans of Earth. Single cells, which once lived alone, started to notice something important. Life was easier when they were close. Life was safer when they shared. And slowly, one of the biggest changes in Earth's history began. At first it was simple. One cell attached to another, then another. A small group, a loose cluster, nothing planned. Nothing smart, just chance. But chance can guide great things when time is long and the world is calm. These tiny groups floated through warm water. They moved as one even though they were many. They turned as one. They fed as one. And this cooperation gave them something new, a small advantage, a little safety, a little strength. This simple teamwork opened a door that had never been opened before. Now life had a reason to build bigger shapes. The ocean was full of sunlight and food. There was space to explore, and each tiny cluster learned something new from the world around it. Some cells held tighter, some let go, some learned to take in nutrients, some learned to protect the outer layer. Slowly these roles changed everything. You can imagine it, a soft cloud of living cells, gentle, slow, almost drifting yet more than drifting, growing, learning, becoming. Each change was tiny, but tiny steps become huge paths when millions of years pass. This was the start of multicellular life. Not strong, not fast, not smart, but new. A kind of life that could build a body instead of staying as one simple cell. The idea of together shaped their future. Another quiet change began. Some cells in these clusters started doing different jobs. One cell took more light. One cell handled waste. One cell formed a skin-like layer. Each one stayed small, but their teamwork made the whole larger than any single part. It was the first whisper of specialization, and it gave these early forms a small edge over the world around them. Shapes began to change too. Some clusters grew flat, some grew round, some stretched long, some curled like soft threads. These shapes helped them move better or catch more light or avoid small currents. Every detail mattered, even if the changes were tiny. Slowly, life began to test forms that no living thing had ever tried before. Imagine a soft ribbon of cells waving gently in the water, or a small ball of life rolling with the tide, or a thin sheet of living tissue floating like a quiet, glowing cloud. These shapes were simple, but they were the start of bodies, bodies that could bend, bodies that could stretch, bodies that could hold a purpose. Life was still slow at this time, still fragile, still silent. There were no bones, no shells, no eyes, no nerves, just soft forms learning how to live together. But the idea of bigger was now planted in the planet's story, and it would grow. Every small change opened a new path. Some forms clung to rocks, some floated freely, some learned to take energy from the sun more efficiently. Some grew thicker walls for protection. Some grew thin extensions to move more easily. This slow variety filled the oceans with gentle experiments. Most shapes failed. Most forms broke. Most lines ended. But the few that survived pushed life forward. This part of Earth's history is easy to miss in school books. It does not have giant creatures or plants or footprints, but it is one of the most peaceful and important moments in the entire story of life. This is when Earth learned how to build complexity, when simple things joined to make something greater, and in the middle of the ocean something amazing was forming, a new type of body that was still soft, still tiny but more organized. For the first time, life was able to grow layers, an outer layer, a middle layer, an inner layer. These layers allowed life to build more detail inside its body, to form basic tissues, to hold shape instead of falling apart. You could call this the first quiet blueprint of all complex life. As these early creatures floated, they tested the limits of what a living shape could be. They stretched longer. They grew wider. They formed tiny lines and folds. They learned to react to touch and light in simple ways, and every small reaction helped them survive one moment longer. The oceans were still peaceful, still warm, still full of chemicals that fed these living forms. The world was steady, and this calm setting allowed life to experiment without rushing, without fear, without competition from anything big. This peaceful time let life develop slowly, like a quiet artist shaping soft clay. Some of these early forms can still be found in today's oceans in tiny traces. They look simple, but they carry the memory of those first steps toward complexity. They remind us that life did not leap forward. It grew gently. It learned slowly. It found its path through patience, not speed. And the more these early creatures learned to work together, the more nature noticed what was possible. Together they could grow larger. Together they could survive longer. Together they could test new ideas. Cooperation became one of the most powerful tools life would ever use. This quiet age of growth set the stage for every large creature that would ever follow, every plant, every animal, every human. All of it started here, in these small, soft bodies floating through ancient oceans, discovering shapes they didn't know they could make. The calm of the world let them try. The time of the world let them grow. And without knowing it, these simple forms changed Earth forever. Life had taken a new step, a bigger step, and it would never go back. The oceans were quiet for a long time. Only soft, simple forms moved through the water. But the world was changing. Shapes were changing. Needs were changing. And slowly the first true animals appeared in Earth's seas. They were strange. They were new. And they brought motion into a world that had barely moved before. Imagine looking into an ancient ocean. The water is clear. Sunlight falls through it like thin gold threads, and somewhere in that calm space a soft shape glides. It has no bones, no hard parts, just a jelly-like body pulsing gently. This is one of the first animals. Its body is simple, but simple is enough. It moves by pushing water behind it, a slow pulse. Then another. Each pulse carries it forward, not fast, not hunting anything, just exploring a world that is opening for the first time. These early jelly-like creatures lived at many depths. Some stayed near the surface, catching light. Some floated deeper, where the water was cooler and dark. With each small movement, they tested new parts of the sea. They were the first travelers of Earth's waters. As time passed, more shapes appeared. Some grew small tentacles to help them catch food. Some grew soft, flat bodies that helped them glide like living sheets. Some developed simple senses that let them tell light from darkness. All small changes, but each one opened new paths. The ocean slowly filled with gentle movement. Then came the animals with armor. They were small at first. Some had tiny plates on their bodies. Some had shells. Some had a strong outer layer that protected them from harm. This armor helped them survive currents, bumps, and even other creatures. With protection came confidence, and with confidence came exploration. These small armored swimmers moved with purpose. They crawled along the sea floor. They dug into sand. They scraped nutrients from rocks. They shaped the ocean world in ways no creature had done before. Life was no longer only soft and drifting. Now there were creatures that pushed, scraped, and crawled. The sea floor started to change too. Tracks appeared. Small marks. Trails that told the story of animals moving across soft mud. These were the earliest steps in the long history of animal behavior. Soon some creatures learned to swim better. Their bodies stretched out. They developed simple fins. They moved through the water with smooth strokes. These swimmers could cover longer distances. They could find new food. They could escape danger. Movement gave them freedom. This freedom led to something new, something powerful, the idea of hunting, not the fierce hunting we know today. No sharp teeth yet. No large bodies chasing prey, but the beginning was there. Small creatures searched for other small creatures. They followed movement. They reacted to tiny vibrations. A new kind of life began, life that lived by finding other life. This changed the ocean in a quiet but important way. Animals now had roles. Some ate algae. Some filtered tiny particles from the water. Some scouted the sea floor. Some waited in place for food to pass by. And some searched actively for moving prey. The ocean was turning into a world of instinct. One of the most interesting early animals had a long, soft body and tentacles like threads. It used these tentacles to pull tiny organisms into its mouth. It did not chase. It did not rush. It simply drifted, letting the world come to it. But it was still a hunter, calm, patient, and always waiting. Other creatures grew eye spots, not real eyes, just small patches of cells that sensed light and dark. But even this small sense was powerful. It helped them move toward light if they needed it, or away from danger. Light became a guide, and guided movement changed everything. A few early animals grew bodies shaped like shields. They crawled across the ocean floor like slow, armored plates. Their strong shells kept them safe. Their small legs helped them feel the world. These early crawlers were the start of a long line of creatures that would one day walk on land. But for now, they stayed low and slow, learning the world inch by inch. Some animals developed bodies that opened and closed like clams. They filtered water for food. They held onto rocks. They were simple but steady. Their shape worked so well that creatures like them still live today. The seas were becoming more alive with each passing age. Now imagine a quiet morning in these ancient waters. Sunlight spreads across the surface. Below, jelly-like forms rise and fall. Armored swimmers glide past. Soft-bodied crawlers search the sea floor. Tiny hunters wait in the shadows. Everything is slow. Everything is peaceful, but everything is learning. This time in Earth's history feels gentle, but it is full of new beginnings. Each creature carries a new idea, a new ability, a new strength. And even though they do not know it, they are setting the stage for the world that will follow. The first predators may sound frightening, but they were small, simple, quiet. They used touch instead of sight. They felt vibrations instead of hearing. They caught food by instinct, not by planning. Their presence did not break the peace of the oceans. It simply added another layer to life's story. And the animals that were hunted learned to react faster. Some learned to move unpredictably. Some learned to stay still. Some began to blend with the ground. These small changes again and again pushed life forward. They made the seas richer, deeper, and more dynamic. With time, colors also appeared in these early animals. Not bright colors like fish today, but soft shades, pale reds, quiet browns, faint blues. These colors came from simple pigments in their bodies. They helped some creatures hide. They helped others show warning. They added beauty to a world that had been nearly colorless before. All of these changes moved slowly, but they added up. The oceans were no longer empty, no longer quiet in the way they once were. They were full of life, each creature carrying a new idea that would shape the future. And the most amazing thing is this: all of these early animals were small. Many were tiny. None were large or complex, but they did not need to be. Their job was simple: to explore, to test, to begin the path every creature would follow after them. They were the first animals, the first movers, the first explorers, and without them nothing else would have ever evolved. For a long time life stayed in the oceans. The seas were safe. The water carried food. The currents moved creatures from place to place, but Earth had more to offer. Above the waves lay huge open lands, empty, dry, and silent. No plants, no animals, no sounds except the wind. For millions of years this land waited quietly, and slowly life began to prepare for its first steps onto this new world. The first to explore land were not animals. They were simple plants, not trees, not flowers, just tiny plant-like forms that grew near the edges of water. They clung to wet rocks. They held to muddy shores. They stretched thin green bodies toward the sun. Sunlight was strong on land, much stronger than in water. These early plants used that light to grow a little thicker, a little taller. They formed small mats over damp ground. They covered stones like soft green carpets. They did not look like the plants we know today, but they were the first living forms to claim land as home. Where plants grew, something else came too: fungi. Fungi were small, silent, patient. They broke down tiny bits of rock and dead plant parts. They made the soil softer, richer, better for more plants to grow. Without fungi, land would have stayed hard and empty. Fungus turned bare rock into the first soil of Earth. This partnership between plants and fungi changed everything. Plants helped fungi. Fungi helped plants. Together, they covered more ground. They pushed farther from the water. They turned gray land into green land, one tiny patch at a time. As this new world formed, something interesting happened. The soil began to hold nutrients. The air near the ground became more moist. Small pools formed around roots. Life was creating space for more life. Nature was opening a new door, and soon the first animals stepped through it. The earliest land animals were tiny, smaller than your fingernail. They came from shallow waters and muddy shores. They crawled onto land because there was food. Small bits of plant material, fungi, algae. These animals had simple bodies and many legs. They breathed air through little openings on their sides. They did not walk proudly into the world. They moved slowly, carefully. The land was strange and dry. It pulled water out of their bodies, so they stayed near damp soil. They hid under plants. They rested under rocks, but they were here. They were the first. Imagine a small insect-like creature crawling across soft, wet ground. Its legs tap gently on the soil. It explores the new world inch by inch. This quiet moment marks the start of every insect, every spider, every land arthropod that would ever live. While these tiny animals adapted to land, plants were changing too. They grew taller to reach more light. They formed stronger stems so they wouldn't fall. They grew deeper roots to stay anchored in the soil. These changes let plants spread far across the land. Soon the first forests appeared. Not forests like today. These early plants were tall but simple. They had no flowers, no leaves shaped like the ones we see now. But they formed thick green worlds that stretched across valleys and hills. With plants growing taller, the land became cooler and more humid. Shade formed. Water collected in small puddles and streams. The air filled with oxygen from all this new plant growth. It was the perfect home for more animals to explore, and more animals came. Some early creatures began moving between water and land. They had fins that slowly changed into simple limbs. Their bodies grew stronger to support their weight outside the water. They could breathe air through special organs that worked like lungs. Step by step, these creatures pushed farther onto land. These early walkers were slow, their bodies were heavy. Their skin dried out fast, so they moved from one wet place to the next, from pond to pond, from stream to stream. Each short journey brought them closer to a life lived mostly on land. Their slow progress changed Earth in a quiet but powerful way. Each time an animal climbed from the water, it created a new path forward. Some found food on land. Some found safety. Some found new challenges that forced their bodies to adapt. These small steps, repeated over millions of years, shaped the future of all land animals. In this time, the land began to come alive. Small animals moved through plants. Larger ones slowly followed. The air carried the faint rustle of movement. The ground held the marks of new footsteps. The world above the waves was no longer empty. Some early land animals used strong limbs to lift their bodies. Others crawled low. Some had simple lungs. Some still had gills but learned to survive short moments out of water. Nature was trying every idea, testing every form. Some succeeded, many failed. But the world grew richer with each attempt. Plants kept spreading too. They grew wider leaves to catch more light. They dropped spores into the wind. They formed huge root networks that held soil together. As plants expanded, the land became more stable. Mud turned into firm ground. Rocks broke into useful pieces. Valleys filled with green. These changes invited even more life. Now imagine an early coastline in this time, a quiet shore filled with soft plants. Small crawling creatures move through the green. The sunlight is warm. The air is still. And just beyond the water's edge, a larger animal takes a slow step onto land. One step, then another. It lifts its head. It breathes air. It looks around at a world that was once empty but is now full of opportunity. This slow spread of life onto land changed Earth forever. The balance of gases in the air shifted. Weather patterns changed. Soil formed deeper layers. Land unlocked new resources. Every living thing adapted to the new conditions. And even though these early steps were gentle, they set the stage for forests, insects, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Every tree, every flower, every land animal you know today is connected to those first quiet moments when life tested the ground. It is peaceful to imagine. The world was calm. The movements were slow, but the impact was huge. Land was no longer just bare rock. It was becoming a living world. These early explorers did not know it, but they were reshaping the planet. Each root, each footstep, each small breath of air, all of it pushed life into its next great chapter. The land had changed. It was no longer empty. Plants had taken hold, spreading across valleys, hills, and riverbanks. Tiny plants became larger, forming thick mats of green. Over millions of years, some plants grew tall. They became the first trees. Not like the forests we know today, but giants for their time. They rose slowly, reaching for the sky, holding onto the soil with strong roots. Every tree added shade, moisture, and shelter. Land became soft under their roots and leaves. The first forests were born. With forests came new opportunities for life. Insects began to explore these growing canopies. Some insects grew much larger than those we see today. Dragonflies stretched wings wider than a human hand. Millipedes crawled over logs and roots, their segmented bodies long and strong. Life in these early forests was busy but quiet. Tiny creatures moved carefully through leaves and soil. The air was filled with the hum of wings and the rustle of many legs. Each insect played a role in this green world. Some ate plants. Some cleaned up decaying matter. Some became food for larger creatures. Amphibians were among the first animals to fully embrace land. They had started as water dwellers, but their strong limbs allowed them to move across soft ground. Some species grew quite large. Their skin needed moisture, so they stayed near water, but they were explorers. These creatures could breathe air and still return to water when necessary. They hunted insects and smaller animals. They laid eggs in water. Life was starting to form new relationships. The forests provided both shelter and food. The first real land ecosystems were taking shape. Reptiles appeared later, taking life a step further. Unlike amphibians, many reptiles could survive far from water. Their skin was tough. Their eggs had hard shells, able to resist drying out. These adaptations allowed reptiles to spread across the warm lands of early Earth. Some reptiles became enormous. Some grew as long as small boats. Their strength made them top predators of their time. They hunted amphibians, insects, and even other reptiles. Life was no longer simple. Food chains formed. Predators and prey adapted together. The forests echoed with the quiet balance of life. Trees also changed. They developed stronger wood and larger leaves. Their roots dug deeper. The canopy formed a shaded world below. Ferns, mosses, and other plants filled every space. Life was becoming dense and rich. Forest floors were dark but alive. Insects scurried. Amphibians hid. Reptiles moved silently. Every step of a predator or a flutter of wings affected something below or above. Nature was weaving complexity quietly, without hurry, but with a power that would shape future life. Water bodies within forests also played a crucial role. Rivers and ponds became centers of activity. Animals visited to drink. Plants grew near the edges. Microbes and small fish thrived in these waters. Amphibians used them to lay eggs. Reptiles came to hunt. Even the largest insects visited water to survive. Life connected across land and water in delicate balance. Forests became more than just green land. They were worlds filled with sound, motion, and hidden stories. Climate during this time helped growth. The earth was warm and wet in many places. Rain fed the rivers and ponds. Sunlight touched leaves, giving energy to plants. Seasonal changes were gentle compared to today, but they shaped life subtly. Some forests remained green all year. Others experienced slow cycles of change, with plants growing, shedding leaves, or producing spores. This rhythm allowed life to adapt. Trees and plants provided not only oxygen but a living structure that supported the animals. Life on land became a network of cooperation and quiet competition. Some of the earliest trees were unusual. They did not have flowers. They reproduced with spores or simple seeds, but their size was impressive. Trunks thickened over decades. Branches reached outward, holding leaves that captured sunlight. Shadows below became home for smaller plants and animals. Life learned to live vertically. Forests were not flat lands anymore. They reached into the sky, forming layers. Each layer held its own community. The forest was a city of life, quietly humming with activity. Insects continued to grow in size. Some dragonflies with huge wings flew through forests like tiny airplanes. Their vision helped them avoid predators and catch prey. Beetles and other hard-shelled insects crawled across leaves and tree trunks. Many insects developed wings, giving them freedom to explore the new world. Flight became a superpower. With it, they could find food, escape danger, and discover new forests. Insects were becoming masters of the air as reptiles ruled the land. Amphibians and reptiles showed that size and strength were not the only advantages. Adaptation was key. Some reptiles developed armor-like skin. Some moved quickly across uneven land. Others learned to hide among roots and fallen leaves. Amphibians remained dependent on water, but their limbs grew strong and their senses sharpened. Every creature tested its limits. Every creature found its niche. Forests became a stage for the slow evolution of form, movement, and behavior. This period of growth was not quiet everywhere. Natural events shaped life too. Storms felled weak trees. Fires occasionally swept through parts of the forest. These events seemed destructive, but they created space for new life. Seeds and spores carried by wind or water took root in open areas. Some animals survived by moving to safer spots. Others learned to live with these changes. Forests were alive not just with creatures but with constant small changes that allowed life to expand and diversify. By this time, Earth had become a green planet. The land had forests, rivers, insects, amphibians, and reptiles. Each life form played a role. Trees produced oxygen and shelter. Insects pollinated plants and decomposed matter. Amphibians moved between land and water. Reptiles became hunters and explorers. Life had learned to fill spaces and use resources efficiently. Every forest had hidden layers, every pond had unseen communities, and every small insect contributed to the balance of the ecosystem. Some reptiles eventually grew enormous. Their size made them the rulers of the forest. Some were slow, using their strength to dominate. Others were fast and clever hunters, yet even giants depended on smaller creatures. Food chains connected the smallest insect to the largest reptile. Forests were no longer just green land. They were alive with energy, motion, and quiet tension. Life had learned how to create order without noise, structure without walls. And in this calm but powerful world, the stage was set for even bigger changes. Forests grew thicker. Animals became more diverse. Life explored new ways to survive, to grow, and to thrive. Earth had transformed from a quiet land into a kingdom of green, where giants walked, insects flew, and amphibians and reptiles tested their limits. This age of forests and giants quietly set the foundation for all the life that would follow. The land had changed again. Forests had grown taller, rivers had carved valleys, and a new kind of creature began to dominate the earth. Dinosaurs appeared, and with them came a world both amazing and enormous. Life had taken a dramatic turn. These creatures were unlike anything that had walked the planet before. Some were small, lighter than a dog, moving quickly through underbrush. Others were massive, taller than a house, their steps shaking the ground. The earth was alive with their presence. The first dinosaurs were curious and cautious. They explored forests, open plains, and riverbanks. Early plant-eating dinosaurs grazed quietly, nibbling on ferns and low plants. Some had long necks that allowed them to reach higher branches. With each bite they shaped the landscape, breaking twigs, trampling plants, and opening spaces for new growth. The plants, in turn, adapted. Some grew tougher leaves. Others spread their seeds farther, carried by wind or water. The world was becoming balanced, a dance of plants and animals influencing each other without sound. Predators soon followed. They were the hunters of this new land, designed to catch, chase, and survive. Some moved in packs, others alone. Some were quick and smart, using sharp claws and teeth to catch prey. Others relied on size and strength, towering over smaller creatures with power and patience. Every forest, plain, and riverbank became a place of quiet tension. Life moved with careful calculation. One wrong step could mean being caught or eaten, and every day was a test of skill, speed, and awareness. Small feathered dinosaurs also appeared. These were often overlooked by the giants but were clever and agile. Some used their feathers to keep warm. Others may have tried gliding from tree to tree. Their colors and patterns were often bright or patterned in ways humans can hardly imagine. The forests echoed with their quiet movements, tiny wings flapping, feet hopping on branches, and soft calls in the air. Life was not just about size or strength. It was about adaptation, cleverness, and survival in many forms. The oceans were not left out of change. Marine reptiles swam in warm seas, some longer than buses, others smaller but fast. These creatures hunted fish, squid, and smaller reptiles. Their movements shaped the water around them, creating currents and patterns that affected other life. Life above and below the waves was connected. The rhythm of the dinosaurs on land was mirrored in the motion of creatures in the water. Every ocean, river, and lake was a stage for motion, growth, and survival. Dinosaurs were not all fierce hunters. Many were peaceful grazers. They moved in groups, watching for danger, helping each other survive. Some traveled long distances to find water or food. Their movements were slow and steady but full of purpose. They shaped the land as they ate and walked, leaving trails, footprints, and marks that can still be seen millions of years later. Life was learning to leave a mark on the earth, to shape its surroundings through simple, everyday actions. The forests themselves changed with dinosaurs. Trees grew taller to survive being eaten. Plants spread seeds far and wide. Ferns and cycads thrived under the shade of massive conifers. The ground was alive with insects, small mammals, and amphibians. Each layer of life depended on the others. Some dinosaurs dug into the soil, turning it over and allowing air and water to reach roots. Others trampled plants, making space for new growth. Life was balanced, complex, and quiet, but full of energy. Sound filled the air. The roar of a giant predator, the hiss of a small dinosaur, the calls of feathered creatures, the rustle of trees as massive animals passed. Every sound told a story of survival. Some sounds were warnings, some were communication. Life had learned to speak in many ways. Even the smallest creatures contributed to this symphony. Insects chirped, birds sang, reptiles hissed. Every call, flap, and step was part of a larger rhythm that connected the land, water, and sky. Weather shaped life too. Rainstorms fell across forests and plains. Rivers swelled and sometimes overflowed, creating new paths and changing the landscape. Wind carried seeds and spores to new places. Sunlight heated the earth in long, warm stretches, helping plants grow. Life had to adapt to these changes. Dinosaurs and other creatures learned to find shelter, to move to higher ground, and to survive when the land shifted around them. Life was patient, learning slowly but steadily how to thrive in every condition. Some dinosaurs had incredible defenses. Thick armor covered their backs, long tails swung like clubs, horns and spikes made predators think twice. Even the smallest dinosaurs could escape danger with speed and cleverness. Life was not about being strongest all the time. It was about finding a way to survive, to use what you had, and to adapt to the world around you. Every species had a strategy, and every strategy mattered. Migration became a part of life. Some dinosaurs moved in herds, traveling across valleys and mountains to find food. Their paths shaped rivers, flattened grass, and opened forests for other creatures. The herds protected each other. Young ones stayed in the middle. Adults watched for predators. Life was social but also careful. Each journey was a test of endurance and knowledge. Survival was learned, passed down, and remembered by generations. Even the skies held life. Pterosaurs glided and swooped above forests and rivers. Their long wings carried them across valleys and seas. Some hunted fish from above, others caught small land animals. Their presence connected land, water, and air. Life was no longer limited to the ground or the sea. It was everywhere, moving, searching, and surviving. The age of dinosaurs was full of motion, sound, and color, even in the quiet moments. Time moved slowly, but changes were constant. New species appeared. Some disappeared. Forests grew and shrank. Rivers carved new paths. Mountains rose and fell over millions of years. Dinosaurs adapted to these changes. Some became larger, some smaller. Life learned patience and persistence. Survival was not about rushing. It was about enduring, growing, and using every opportunity the earth offered. The earth during the age of dinosaurs was not silent. It was alive with movement, sound, and life in every form. Giants and tiny creatures, land and sea, air and forest, all worked together in a delicate balance. Life was learning to thrive in complexity, to survive in numbers, and to shape the planet around it. Every step, flap, and movement mattered. Life was a story told quietly over millions of years, full of wonder, growth, and survival. Even now, we can see traces of this world. Fossils, footprints, and imprints tell stories of giants, hunters, and grazers. Each mark is a reminder of the rhythm of life that once filled the earth. Life moved with purpose, shaped the land, and adapted to every challenge. The age of dinosaurs was a lesson in patience, persistence, and balance. It was a time when life was bold, creative, and unstoppable. The planet was a stage for this long, quiet, but vibrant story, echoing through the rocks and soil even today. The sky went dark. A bright light had appeared in the distance, a fireball falling from space. No one knew it at the time, but it would change the world forever. Trees were shaken. Forests caught fire. The air filled with smoke and ash. The oceans were tossed by waves. The ground itself trembled as the impact hit. The age of dinosaurs, which had lasted for millions of years, ended in a single, sudden moment. The dinosaurs, giants and small alike, could not survive this new world. The once thriving forests turned to ashes. Rivers ran thick with sediment, and the sunlight that had nurtured plants and trees for ages disappeared behind a dark, heavy sky. Temperatures dropped quickly. The earth became cold and harsh. Food became scarce. The creatures that had ruled the land could not adapt fast enough. The mighty predators, the peaceful grazers, the feathered hunters, all were gone. Silence fell over lands that had once been full of sound and movement. Yet, life did not vanish completely. In the shadows, in tiny burrows in the cracks of rocks, some small creatures survived. These were mammals, birds, insects, and other small animals. They had managed to stay hidden from the fires, the storms, and the freezing cold. While the giants perished, these survivors held the seeds of a new future. Life had learned a new kind of lesson. Sometimes, survival is not about strength or size, but patience and careful hiding. The days after the impact were filled with strange skies. The sun struggled to shine through the thick clouds of dust and ash. Plants began to die and the land was barren. Yet slowly, quietly, the world began to recover. Seeds that had fallen before the fire waited in the soil. Bacteria, fungi, and insects began to repair the broken earth. The oceans, though disturbed by enormous waves, began to settle. Currents and tides washed away ash and soot. Life, small and humble, quietly started the slow work of rebuilding. The mammals that had survived began to explore. They were tiny, often no bigger than a rabbit, but they were adaptable. They could hide in burrows, eat what others could not, and survive in the harsh climate. Birds, too, found ways to survive. They could fly to new places, eat seeds, insects, or small plants and move away from danger. Every small action mattered. Life learned that even in the aftermath of destruction, there is a chance to start again. Over the years, the earth slowly warmed. Sunlight returned to the land. Plants sprouted, first the small, hardy ones, then shrubs and trees. Forests began to grow again, though different from those that had existed before. Rivers found new paths, carving valleys and depositing rich soil. Insects returned, carrying pollen and seeds, helping the plants grow. Every day the planet became a little more alive, a little more colorful, and a little more familiar. The survivors began to change. Mammals, once small and shy, began to explore new ways of living. Some climbed trees. Some burrowed deeper into the soil. Some learned to hunt insects or small plants. Birds adapted to new environments, some losing flight, others becoming faster and more agile. Life was learning to fill the empty spaces left by the dinosaurs. Nature was patient, quiet, but relentless. Rivers and lakes became full of fish and amphibians. Insects multiplied, pollinating flowers and spreading seeds. Forests grew dense again, but with a new pattern. Without the giants, plants and animals interacted differently. Life discovered balance in new ways. Predators evolved, prey evolved, and the ecosystem became intricate once again. Each species had a role, each small action influencing others. Life was not as loud or dramatic as before, but it was resilient and full of possibility. Mountains and plains, shaped by the impact and erosion, became new homes. Animals explored these areas, moving into regions once occupied by dinosaurs. Forests spread into open lands. Grasslands began to appear in some places. Small mammals took advantage of these open areas, finding food and shelter. Birds found safe nesting places in trees and cliffs. Life was spreading, quietly but steadily into every corner of the recovering Earth. Time passed, and the planet healed further. New species appeared, replacing those that had died. Mammals grew larger and more diverse. Some began living in trees, some in water, and some on open plains. Birds diversified too, filling the sky with new kinds of flight. Life was learning that survival was not about who was strongest, but about who could adapt, learn, and wait for the right moment. The Earth itself changed as well. Volcanoes erupted, rivers carved deeper valleys, and winds shaped mountains. The climate fluctuated, forcing life to keep adjusting. Life was never still. It moved quietly with the world around it. Forests grew denser or thinned out depending on rainfall. Animals moved to follow food and water. Life found ways to survive even in unexpected conditions. Every generation carried lessons from the past, learned from the harsh ending of the dinosaurs. In this new world, balance became key. Predators were smaller but clever. Prey animals learned new strategies for safety. Plants adapted to different soils and climates. Even microorganisms played a crucial role, breaking down dead matter, enriching the soil, and helping new life grow. The quiet cooperation of life, invisible yet essential, rebuilt the earth in ways both simple and amazing. Millions of years after the impact, forests were once again thick with life. Rivers sparkled in the sunlight. Small mammals had grown into a wide variety of shapes and sizes. Birds filled the sky with color and song. Insects buzzed from flower to flower. Life had survived not by force but by patience, cleverness, and resilience. The earth had been scarred, but it had healed, and life had returned stronger, more diverse, and more adaptable. Even now, we can see the traces of this quiet recovery in fossils, rocks, and DNA. The tiny survivors of the great ending gave rise to mammals, birds, and eventually humans. They remind us that life is not about being the biggest or the strongest. It is about endurance, adaptation, and the ability to keep going even when everything seems lost. The quiet aftermath of the dinosaur extinction is a lesson written in stone, in forests, and in the oceans, a story of hope, patience, and the resilience of life on Earth. From fire and darkness came the first steps toward a new world. The Earth started again, slowly, quietly, but beautifully. Life learned to adapt, to explore, and to survive in ways it had never needed before. The great ending was not the end of life, but the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with opportunity, discovery, and gentle persistence. In the quiet after catastrophe, the planet hummed with potential, reminding us that even after loss, life always finds a way to return, stronger and wiser than before. After the age of dinosaurs ended, the Earth became a quiet place. The forests were growing again and rivers were running clear, but the world felt empty without the giants that had once ruled. Into this space stepped the mammals, small and soft, warm-blooded creatures that had survived in hiding. They were not large or fierce, but they were clever and adaptable. Life had given them a chance, and they began to explore the planet in ways the dinosaurs never could. Early mammals were mostly small, about the size of a mouse or rabbit. They had fur keeping them warm even when the nights were cold. Their bodies were soft and their movements quiet. This softness was an advantage. They could hide easily, crawl into burrows, and escape predators. They were active at night when the sky was dark and the air was still. Night had once been dangerous, but now it became their time. With sharp senses and quick reflexes, they could move through forests and grasslands with skill and care. Curiosity guided their every step. Mammals began to explore plants, seeds, insects, and small animals for food. They learned which areas were safe and which were dangerous. Unlike dinosaurs that had relied on size or strength, mammals relied on cleverness, alertness, and the ability to adapt. Life was beginning to experiment with new ways of surviving. Each small mammal that explored the world was writing the next chapter of life on Earth. One of the most important changes was the care for young. Mammals were different from most other animals because they protected their babies. Mothers fed their young, kept them warm, and taught them how to survive. This simple act gave them an advantage. Babies could grow stronger, learn faster, and survive longer. Families formed, small groups that worked together in quiet, careful ways. Life had discovered a new way to thrive, nurturing the next generation. With the dinosaurs gone, the daytime world slowly became accessible. Early mammals, once restricted to hiding, began venturing into the light. They climbed trees, explored riverbanks, and walked through open grasslands. The earth was full of opportunities. Predators that had hunted them were no longer there, and plants and insects offered new sources of food. Life was experimenting with freedom and expansion. Some mammals began to specialize. Some were herbivores, nibbling leaves, seeds, and fruits. Some were insect eaters, clever hunters of tiny, crawling creatures. Others became omnivores, eating whatever they could find. Each species found a way to fit into the world, quietly filling the spaces left by the fallen dinosaurs. In forests, rivers, and plains, mammals slowly took over the roles once held by giants. The variety of mammals began to grow. Some learned to dig deep burrows, escaping the heat of the day or hiding from predators. Others climbed trees with agility, leaping from branch to branch. Some even took to the water, learning to swim and hunt fish. Life was exploring every possibility, testing what worked and what didn't. The world became richer, more connected, and more alive with the quiet activity of mammals. Night continued to be a time of learning and discovery. Early mammals had sharp senses, keen hearing, good smell, and sensitive touch. They could move through darkness with confidence, sensing danger before it came. Their small size, once a weakness, became a strength. They could sneak into places larger animals could not reach, find hidden food, and escape threats. Survival depended on awareness and caution, not strength. Each movement, each choice, shaped the future of life on Earth. Life also began to experiment with new body shapes and sizes. Some mammals remained tiny, clever enough to hide and survive. Others grew larger over time, exploring new diets and territories. Teeth changed to suit different foods, sharp for hunting, flat for grinding plants. Limbs adapted for climbing, running, digging, or swimming. Nature was slowly testing what worked best in this new world. Every change was small but meaningful, setting the stage for the variety of mammals that would come later. Communication began to play a bigger role. Mammals made sounds, soft chirps, and calls to warn of danger or call their young. They learned to use smells to mark territories or attract mates. Life was finding ways to connect, to share information, and to cooperate in quiet ways. These simple acts allowed groups to survive together, moving through forests, rivers, and plains with subtle understanding. As time passed, the environment itself encouraged new behaviors. Forests grew taller and denser. Grasslands expanded. Rivers changed their paths, forming new wetlands. Mountains rose slowly, creating different climates. Mammals adapted to these changes. Some learned to burrow under the ground to escape heat or cold. Others traveled long distances to find food and water. Life was discovering the rhythm of the planet, learning to move with it rather than against it. With each passing generation, mammals became more diverse and stronger. Their bodies and minds adapted to the changing world. Some developed speed, others endurance, and some clever ways to avoid predators. They explored both land and water, small and large spaces, learning to survive anywhere. Life was shaping itself, quietly and patiently, into new forms that would define the future of the Earth. Birds, too, began to play a bigger role. They were descendants of the dinosaurs that survived, and now they competed and cooperated with mammals. Together, mammals and birds filled the skies, forests, and rivers. Life was no longer dominated by giants, but by a web of creatures, each finding its place. This balance was delicate but powerful. Survival depended on awareness, flexibility, and quiet intelligence. Eventually, some mammals grew larger while others remained small. Diversity became the key to survival. Some learned to live in groups, some alone. Some hunted, some grazed, and some scavenged. The Earth became a patchwork of ecosystems, each with unique life strategies. Life was no longer simple. It was a network of interactions, cooperation, and subtle competition. Mammals were at the center of this quiet revolution. From the ashes of the dinosaur age, mammals began a new chapter. Their curiosity, care for young, adaptability, and patience allowed them to explore and thrive. The Earth, once dominated by giants, now became a playground of small, intelligent, and resourceful creatures. Night gave way to day. Forests and plains filled with soft fur and keen eyes. Rivers, lakes, and trees became full of quiet life, testing, learning, and surviving. In the end, the rise of mammals was not about force or speed. It was about patience, care, and cleverness. It was about learning from the mistakes of the past and using quiet intelligence to survive and grow. The mammals that began this slow journey would eventually give rise to new species, some large, some small, some that would shape the world in ways unimaginable. Life had found its way back, stronger, adaptable, and full of promise. The quiet footsteps of these early mammals set the stage for the next chapters of Earth's story, reminding us that survival is about persistence, curiosity, and the courage to explore a world forever changing. After millions of years of mammals growing and exploring, a special group began to appear in the forests of the Earth. These were small, curious creatures with soft fur, agile hands, and eyes that could see far and close. They were early primates, tiny mammals learning to live in trees. Life had given them an opportunity to try something new, a world above the ground, full of branches, leaves, and shadows. Climbing became their first skill. They learned to move between branches, carefully placing hands and feet to hold on tight. The forest was full of dangers. A wrong step could mean falling to the ground or meeting a predator. But the trees offered safety and food. Fruits, seeds, leaves, and insects were all within reach. Climbing gave these primates freedom. The higher they went, the more they could see. Their eyes began to focus forward, giving them depth and distance. This was the start of vision that could judge space and movement, helping them survive in a three-dimensional world. Their hands became incredible tools. Early primates could grab branches, peel fruits, pick insects, and hold on to each other. These hands allowed them to interact with the environment in ways other mammals could not. Fingers could grasp, touch, and explore. Over generations, hands became stronger, more precise, and more careful. Life was learning to use its own body as a tool, experimenting with manipulation and control. Brains began to grow slowly. They were still small compared to later species, but even a little extra thinking power gave them an advantage. A bigger brain allowed early primates to remember which fruits were ripe, where predators hid, and how to move safely through the forest. Social life also became more complex. Early primates learned to communicate with calls, gestures, and expressions. Families and small groups formed, where cooperation and understanding became necessary for survival. The forest was a classroom, teaching lessons every day, and the primates were learning quickly. Curiosity guided their actions. They explored new branches, tested different foods, and watched each other carefully. When one discovered something useful, others could learn from it. Eyes and hands were tools of discovery. Life was beginning to show intelligence, not through size or strength, but through observation, learning, and memory. The first early primates were small and soft, but agile and clever. They could swing, leap, and crawl through dense forests. Night and day shaped their habits. Some were active during the day, taking advantage of sunlight to see fruit colors and detect predators. Others moved at night, avoiding danger and finding insects in the dark. These habits gave them opportunities to survive and grow. Life was learning to be flexible and patient. Over time, some early primates developed unique skills. They could remember paths through trees, know which plants were safe, and sense danger before it arrived. Their social groups expanded. They began grooming each other, building bonds, and helping each other find food. Communication became more meaningful. A warning call could save lives. A gesture could calm tension. Life was beginning to understand teamwork and connection. The shape of their bodies slowly adapted to their life in the forest. Limbs became longer for climbing, tails helped with balance, and eyes moved forward for better vision. Each change was small, but over thousands of generations it added up. Life was experimenting with form and function, shaping creatures that could handle complexity and challenge. Life in the trees also sparked imagination and problem-solving. Early primates began to use simple objects, sticks to reach food, leaves for shelter, and even rocks for defense. They noticed patterns in their environment, where fruits grew, where water flowed, and where predators waited. Learning to plan and anticipate events became crucial. Life was discovering the beginnings of intelligence that would one day shape the entire planet. Curiosity and social bonds worked together. Families shared knowledge. Younger primates learned by watching older ones. Mistakes were noticed and corrected. Survival depended not just on strength or speed, but on memory, attention, and cooperation. Life was showing that intelligence could be just as powerful as claws or teeth. As millions of years passed, these early primates evolved into more advanced species. Brains grew larger. Hands became more flexible and skillful. Eyes were sharper and more precise. Social structures became more complex. Life was moving slowly but steadily toward something extraordinary, the first humans. Early primates were still small and quiet, but their world was full of opportunities. Trees provided food, shelter, and safety. Forests offered variety, danger, and lessons. By exploring, observing, and experimenting, life was shaping creatures that could understand, adapt, and create. Each small action, each leap from branch to branch, each discovery of food or tool was a step toward humanity. These creatures lived carefully but boldly. They learned which paths were safe, which fruits were edible, and which sounds meant danger. Every day was a lesson in observation, patience, and problem-solving. Life was becoming more than survival. It was learning to think ahead, plan, and cooperate. Intelligence was emerging quietly, like a spark in a dim forest. Hands, eyes, and brains together created a new world of possibility. Life was no longer limited to instinct alone. Memory, curiosity, and cooperation gave early primates the tools to explore, survive, and grow. They could remember paths, recognize dangers, and communicate in subtle ways. Life was testing the limits of intelligence, slowly discovering how to solve problems and work together. The slow path toward humanity was unfolding in these forests, each generation built on the knowledge of the previous one. Every leap, grasp, and observation was part of a long story that would eventually lead to upright walking, tools, and complex thought. Life was preparing the stage for something entirely new, something capable of shaping the world in ways no other species could. By the time the first true hominins appeared, millions of years had passed. Forests had taught survival, hands had taught manipulation, and brains had taught memory and planning. Early humans were not yet the rulers of the earth, but they carried within them the tools to explore, adapt, and change the planet forever. Life had begun its journey from tiny mammals to thinkers, planners, and creators. The story of human beginnings reminds us that every small step matters. Curiosity, observation, and patience shaped life in ways that strength alone never could. From the quiet forests to the branches above, life prepared for a species that would one day look at the stars, explore the earth, and leave a mark unlike any other. These early primates, small and fragile, were the start of humanity's story, a slow, careful, and astonishing journey through time. After millions of years of slow evolution, humans began to step into a new phase of life. Their bodies changed first. Legs became stronger, able to support their full weight for long periods. Early humans started walking upright, leaving the forest floor behind. Standing tall gave them new advantages. They could see farther, notice dangers sooner, and reach higher places. The simple act of walking on two legs opened doors to a world that had always been just out of reach. Hands, already skilled from primate ancestors, became even more important. They were no longer just for climbing or holding food. Early humans began shaping stones into simple tools. Sharp-edged rocks could cut meat, crush plants, or dig into the earth. Branches became spears to hunt small animals. Each tool gave humans more control over their environment. Life was learning to change the world, rather than just survive in it. Fire was one of the most powerful discoveries. At first, humans likely watched natural fires, lightning strikes, and volcanic activity. Slowly, they learned to control sparks and flames. Fire provided warmth in cold nights, protection from predators, and a way to cook food. Cooking made food easier to eat and digest, giving the body more energy. Fire also brought humans together. Around glowing embers, they could share stories, teach, and plan. Flames created light in the darkness, not just outside but in their minds too. Groups became stronger than individuals. Humans learned to cooperate, hunting in pairs or teams. They shared food, protected each other, and raised young together. Communication developed. Early humans used sounds, gestures, and facial expressions to convey ideas. Each member of a group could learn from others, passing knowledge down generations. Cooperation became a survival tool. Alone, humans would struggle. Together, they thrived. The human mind began to expand. Intelligence grew slowly but steadily. Early humans could remember which plants were safe, which paths led to water, and where predators waited. They began to plan ahead. Tools were not just picked up, they were prepared. They thought about hunting strategies and where to find shelter. Life was learning foresight, a skill that would define humans for all time. Emotions became more visible. Humans could feel fear, joy, grief, and curiosity. These feelings guided actions. Protecting family, helping friends, and avoiding danger all became part of daily life. Emotions helped early humans understand each other and respond with care. Love and empathy became survival tools as much as teeth or claws had once been. Life was not just about the body anymore. It was about the mind and heart working together. Imagination began to take shape. Humans started to see patterns in the stars, clouds, and landscapes. They noticed repeating shapes, sounds, and cycles. This awareness allowed them to predict seasons, find food, and move wisely. It also allowed them to tell stories. Stories passed knowledge from one generation to the next. They explained the world, preserved experiences, and inspired courage. Imagination became a bridge between survival and creation. Walking upright also changed the way humans interacted with the world. They could carry tools, children, and food long distances. Standing tall allowed them to travel further, explore new lands, and connect with other groups. Life was no longer tied to a single forest or river. Humans could move, adapt, and survive in varied landscapes. Each step forward expanded their world, opening new possibilities. The awareness of self was growing. Early humans began to recognize their own thoughts and feelings. They could imagine the experiences of others. This self-awareness shaped their choices, helping them avoid danger and seek rewards. It allowed them to plan, communicate, and form societies. Life was becoming conscious, aware of itself in ways no other species had achieved. Tools became more complex over time. Stones were shaped with precision. Wood was carved into handles and weapons. Bones were sharpened into needles or hooks. Each new tool made survival easier and expanded the range of what humans could do. Life was learning to use objects to extend its power, to change the environment rather than be shaped entirely by it. Hunting improved. Humans learned to track animals, understand their habits, and anticipate movements. Teamwork allowed for larger prey to be caught. Humans became the first predators to plan, communicate, and coordinate on a scale that changed ecosystems. Life had moved beyond instinct. It was now strategy, intelligence, and foresight. Shelter became more sophisticated. Humans used branches, leaves, and rocks to create safe spaces. Some early homes were temporary, moved as food or water changed. Others were more permanent, creating early communities. Shelter provided safety, a place to gather, and a way to control the environment. Humans could sleep more safely, store food, and spend time together. Life was shaping spaces to support life itself. Fire also changed the mind. Nights became longer without fear. Around warmth and light, humans could talk, plan, and create. Fire illuminated ideas. It encouraged reflection and storytelling. It allowed early humans to think about the past and future, not just the immediate moment. Life was learning to imagine time, to consider actions before they happened. Language began quietly. Early humans used sounds, gestures, and expressions to communicate. Simple signals became shared meanings. Over generations, this communication became more complex. Ideas, warnings, and knowledge could now be passed down, not just through experience, but through words. Life was creating a tool that would shape the entire future of the planet. Humans also began to leave marks on the land. Simple carvings, scratches on rocks, and arrangements of stones or sticks began to appear. These were early expressions of creativity and thought. They were the beginnings of art, symbols, and memory outside the body. Life was learning to record itself, to leave traces that could outlast a single lifetime. The combination of upright walking, tool use, fire, cooperation, and imagination transformed life on Earth. Early humans could survive in more climates, hunt larger prey, and explore distant lands. Communities could share knowledge, protect one another, and thrive. Life was no longer limited to instinct or environment. It was now capable of shaping both. Through small steps and quiet observations, humans were learning what it meant to be aware, intelligent, and social. Every discovery, from fire to tools to language, was a seed that would grow over millennia. Life was experimenting with a new form, a creature capable of thinking about the future, creating its own environment, and leaving a mark on the world. The rise of early humans reminds us how slowly but surely life can change. From the soft forests of ancient Earth to open plains, early humans stepped forward, not all at once, but carefully, with intelligence, curiosity, and cooperation. Each tool, fire, and story became part of a long chain leading to the complex world we know today. Life was learning, adapting, and preparing to take its greatest step yet. And in these quiet movements, upright steps, hands shaping tools, eyes watching, minds imagining, Earth itself began to change. Landscapes would be explored, fires would be controlled, and societies would form. Early humans were no longer just another species. They were a turning point in the story of life, a sign of the power of awareness, cooperation, and imagination. Life on Earth had taken a bold, careful step forward, and the path it set in motion would shape the planet forever. After learning to walk upright, use tools, control fire, and communicate, humans began to change the world in ways no other species had. Life on Earth had entered a new chapter, one where a single species could shape the land, water, and even the air. Small bands of humans, once hunters and gatherers, discovered that they could make the earth work for them. They learned to plant seeds, to grow food instead of just finding it. Agriculture was born. With it came stability. Humans could stay in one place. They could plan for the seasons, store food for winter, and support larger groups. Fields replaced wild forests. Life was no longer just responding to nature, it was beginning to guide it. Communities formed naturally around these new fields. Families grew into villages, villages grew into towns. People began to live together for protection, support, and shared knowledge. The quiet forests and plains now held places where humans gathered, talked, and learned. Cooperation became more complex. People divided tasks. Some farmed, others built, hunted, or made tools. Every role helped the group survive. Life had become a story of collaboration, a network of interdependent humans shaping the earth together. As villages grew, cities eventually emerged. Houses clustered, roads formed, and markets appeared. Humans learned to organize themselves, to trade goods, to build systems of governance. Stone, wood, and clay became materials not just for shelter, but for structures that lasted generations. Life on Earth began to carry the mark of human hands. The land itself was becoming a canvas, shaped by labor, planning, and vision. Technology followed naturally. Early inventions like the wheel, pottery, and simple plows changed daily life. Wheels moved heavy loads, pottery stored water and food, and plows allowed humans to cultivate more land efficiently. Each tool or device extended what humans could do. Life had found a way to multiply its abilities, to transform effort into achievement. Technology was not just convenience, it was survival amplified, imagination made tangible. Exploration became part of human life. Once people stayed near home, relying on familiar forests, rivers, and mountains. But curiosity and the need for resources pushed them further. Humans traveled across continents, discovering new plants, animals, and landscapes. Rivers became highways, and seas became paths for boats and rafts. Life was no longer confined to one region. The planet was a stage, and humans were slowly exploring every corner, learning to survive and adapt everywhere. Creativity flourished alongside survival. Humans began to express ideas, emotions, and beliefs through art, music, and storytelling. Cave walls became galleries. Simple carvings told stories of hunts, seasons, or celestial patterns. Instruments made from bones and wood created sound. Life was no longer just about living. It was about imagining, recording, and sharing. Humans were creating culture, a new layer of life that could persist beyond a single lifetime. With these changes, humans also began to shape nature itself. Forests were cleared for fields. Rivers were redirected to water crops. Animals were domesticated. Dogs became companions and helpers. Sheep, goats, and cattle provided food, wool, and labor. Life was learning to use other species in partnership, forming relationships that would last thousands of years. Humans were not just part of the ecosystem anymore, they were architects of it. Trade networks developed, linking distant communities. Goods, ideas, and knowledge moved between people. A tool or craft from one region could influence another. Plants, animals, and seeds were shared, spreading life in new ways. Trade encouraged communication and cooperation across long distances. Life had become interconnected, not just locally, but across continents. Humans were knitting the earth together in a new pattern. Early cities brought challenges too. Crowds, waste, and disease became part of life in dense populations. Humans had to learn to manage these problems. They built sanitation systems, stored food carefully, and developed rules for living together. Even as life became more complex, humans adapted. Each challenge was met with innovation. Life was showing resilience, creativity, and intelligence working together. Humans began to record history. Symbols, markings, and eventually writing allowed knowledge to survive beyond a single lifetime. Lessons learned from one generation could guide the next. Agriculture techniques, hunting strategies, trade rules, and cultural practices were passed on. Life had discovered memory outside the body. Humans could now carry experience, knowledge, and imagination forward in ways that no other species had. Religion and belief systems emerged, reflecting curiosity about the world, nature, and the stars. Humans began to ask big questions. Why is there night and day? Where do we come from? What happens after death? Life was not just physical anymore. It was also reflective and spiritual. Humans were observing, interpreting, and seeking meaning in the earth and sky around them. Art and architecture began to shape landscapes. Temples, monuments, and statues were built to honor gods, leaders, or nature. Life on Earth was no longer just observed, it was celebrated. Humans learned to create beauty, to leave traces of themselves in stone, clay, and paint. These creations outlasted generations, marking the passage of time and human imagination. As knowledge grew, humans experimented with science. Observation, testing, and reasoning became tools to understand plants, animals, and weather. Calendars were created to track the sun, moon, and seasons. Humans learned to predict rains, harvests, and animal migrations. Life had become not just survival, it was understanding, predicting, and preparing. Humans were beginning to shape the future, guided by knowledge. Exploration extended beyond land. Boats, sails, and navigation tools allowed humans to cross seas and discover new lands. Humans reached islands, continents, and oceans previously untouched. Life had become mobile in new ways. Ideas and cultures spread, meeting, mixing, and evolving. Humans could now change not just their local environment, but entire regions. Agriculture, technology, cities, and exploration all transformed ecosystems. Humans planted new crops, domesticated animals, and built settlements. Forests and wetlands were modified. Rivers and lakes were used differently. Life on Earth was now a combination of natural and human-influenced systems. Humans were no longer just passengers, they were conductors, shaping the music of the planet. Despite the changes, humans remained part of the Earth. They learned to respect rivers, soils, and seasons. They observed animals and patterns. They understood that survival required harmony with the world around them. Life was a partnership. Humans could change the Earth, but they were also shaped by it, learning lessons in patience, adaptation, and foresight. Every step humans took, planting a seed, building a house, exploring a river, crafting a tool, left a mark. Life on Earth became layered with these human actions. Landscapes, climates, and communities were all transformed quietly but powerfully. Humans had become a force, shaping everything around them while still being guided by the rhythms of nature. From the first farms to sprawling cities, humans slowly turned the quiet planet into one of light, sound, and movement. Fields swayed in the wind, fires glowed in the night, markets hummed with trade, music filled the air, knowledge spread through symbols and words. Life was no longer just surviving, it was creating, shaping, and imagining. Humans had taken the tools given by evolution and used them to expand the possibilities of life. The Earth was no longer only a place to live, it was a place to build, explore, and express. And yet, humans never fully left nature behind. Rivers, forests, and animals continued to shape them. The Earth and humans grew together, quietly learning from one another. Through agriculture, technology, cities, exploration, and creativity, humans transformed the Earth. They shaped landscapes, communities, and ecosystems. They recorded history, created art, and sought knowledge. Life had become not just a story of survival, but of imagination, collaboration, and innovation. And this transformation was only the beginning. The planet, once quiet and untouched, now hummed with the energy of a species learning to understand, influence, and connect every corner of the world. Humans had stepped forward, not with sudden force, but with careful observation, curiosity, and cooperation. The Earth itself became part of their story, and their story became part of the Earth. Life had grown powerful, intelligent, and creative. And as humans continued to explore, invent, and build, the quiet planet became a stage of endless possibility, alive with the footsteps, voices, and imagination of one extraordinary species. Right now, life on Earth is a mixture of quiet beauty and constant motion. From the tiniest microbes in the soil to the enormous whales in the oceans, every living thing is connected in ways we often do not notice. And at the center of this story is you. You, breathing, moving, and thinking, are part of this incredible web that has been growing and changing for billions of years. Life is not something separate from us. It is in us, around us, and flowing through every moment. People today live in a world that is more connected than ever before. Cities stretch across continents. Technology links minds across oceans. But even as humans shape the Earth more than ever, the planet still carries the echoes of the first cells, the first forests, and the rise of every species that came before us. Every tree you see, every river you cross, and every bird that flies above you carries the story of life. And now, that story includes us, in ways both gentle and powerful. Nature around us is both resilient and fragile. Forests grow and fall. Rivers change course. Oceans swell and recede. Species appear, thrive, and sometimes disappear. The balance of life is delicate, and yet it has endured countless changes over billions of years. Humans have the ability to protect, restore, and preserve this balance, or to disrupt it. Every choice we make, every action we take, becomes part of the continuing story of life on Earth. Even in the busiest cities, life finds a way. Plants push through cracks in sidewalks, birds nest on buildings, insects crawl along walls. Microbes exist everywhere, even in places humans rarely notice. The planet continues to breathe, to grow, and to renew itself. Life does not pause, it adapts, persists, and finds new ways to survive. And we are part of that adaptation. You can see evidence of this everywhere. Protected forests and reserves are havens for animals. Coral reefs shimmer with colors unimaginable to humans. Wetlands filter water and support thousands of species. Even your own backyard or a small garden can become a tiny world of life, buzzing, crawling, and blossoming with energy. Each human has the power to notice, to care, and to participate in this ongoing story. Science and knowledge today allow humans to understand the Earth in ways no one before could imagine. Satellites track climate patterns, oceans, and forests. Researchers explore deep oceans, mountains, and even the air around the planet. We know that a single species, humans, can affect the balance of the entire biosphere. We also know that humans have the potential to help the Earth recover, to heal areas damaged by pollution, deforestation, or climate change. Life is a story of cause and effect, and today, humans hold many of the pages in their hands. As we think about the future, the questions become both urgent and hopeful. How will life continue to flourish? What species will thrive and which may vanish? Will humans live in harmony with nature, or will we continue to push its limits? These questions are not just scientific, they are personal. Every person can make choices that ripple across the planet, shaping the world for generations to come. Life is a quiet force, but it listens and responds. Yet there is hope. Communities around the world work to protect habitats, clean oceans, and replant forests. People study animals and plants to ensure they survive. Innovation brings new ways to create energy, reduce waste, and live sustainably. The human story is now intertwined with the story of life itself, and every effort counts. Small changes by individuals, multiplied across the globe, can shape a future where life continues to flourish. Even in the present, life surprises us. Scientists discover new species every year, plants, insects, and animals that were previously unknown. Some are tiny and delicate. Some are large and powerful. Each discovery is a reminder that Earth still holds secrets. Even today, in cities, forests, deserts, and oceans, life continues to evolve in quiet and unexpected ways. The story of Earth is still being written, and every living thing, including humans, is part of the ongoing chapter. When you pause to look around, life is everywhere. The wind rustling leaves carries seeds and pollen. Water flowing through rivers supports fish, insects, and microbes. Soil beneath your feet is alive with worms, fungi, and bacteria, all working together to nourish the world above. Life is quiet yet unstoppable, delicate yet resilient. And you are part of that rhythm. Every human breath is connected to the Earth's history. The air you inhale has passed through forests, oceans, and living creatures long before you. The food you eat carries energy from the sun, soil, and water. Every action you take, planting a tree, picking up litter, conserving water, becomes part of the living story. Life is not separate from us, it flows through us. As the future unfolds, humans will continue to explore, learn, and create. Cities may grow, technology will advance, and knowledge will expand. But the core truth remains. We are part of a planet teeming with life, a planet that has seen countless changes and will continue to change. The choices we make now will guide the story of life for centuries to come. The earth is fragile, but it is also strong. Life is persistent, and humans are both a challenge and a hope within it. The quiet moments are where connection is strongest. Watching a sunrise over a field, listening to birds sing, noticing insects in a garden, or observing clouds in the sky. These are reminders of the living earth. Every plant, animal, and human shares the same story, the same long history, and the same future. We are the caretakers now, the species with the ability to preserve, protect, and inspire the continuation of life. So take a moment to feel it. Life is around you, within you, and part of you. You are part of the long story of Earth, from the first cells in ancient oceans, to forests and dinosaurs, to early humans, and now to your own life. Your presence matters. Your actions matter. The quiet, steady force of life continues, and you are its participant, observer, and guide. As the video comes to a close, remember this. You are made of stardust, connected to oceans, mountains, forests, and every creature that has ever lived. Life is not fragile, it is resilient. It has survived extremes, mass extinctions, and changes unimaginable. And now it continues through you. So wherever you go, whatever you do, you carry the story of life with you. Notice it, respect it, and participate in it. Every choice, every act of care, every moment of attention is part of Earth's ongoing journey. Life on Earth is a quiet miracle, and you are its witness and steward. Sleep with this thought. You are connected to the oceans, the trees, the animals, and every person alive today. You are part of a history billions of years old and part of a future yet to be written. Life is still unfolding, and you are one of its most remarkable chapters. Good night, and remember, you are not separate from the planet. You are part of the Earth's long, beautiful, and continuous story.